I could more or less acknowledge that perhaps there's a misunderstanding here and that a reasonable man could have mistaken the allegations for something else, but here's a long list of excuses for what he really should have seen. Obviously, if any of the charges are true, one could do the right thing and just simply admit to it. And that kind of stuff doesn't happen very often in life. I'm 43 years old. I've done an awful lot of things in my life that I'm not proud of. Some of them very serious, some of them not so serious, some of them dealing with just one or two individuals, some of them dealing with society in general. There's much in my life that I am ashamed of. I am, after all, every man. I can offer an excuse for damn near everything in my life that I'm not pleased with. But if I did that, I wouldn't be delivering excuses for your benefit, but for my own. I would be delivering excuses to try to justify to myself why I shouldn't be even more ashamed of some of the things that I've done. As I've already said, this is not to question the ethics of a caller. Now, this discussion is to question and examine my own ethics. My own ethics are far, far, far more important to me than yours or his or anybody else's. I am increasingly more concerned with this society. You guys already know that. I'm not going to trouble you with my concerns. But I am also a member of this society, and therefore I am responsible for upholding my end of it. I am responsible for being ethical when it's required, for being honest when it's required, for doing my duty when it's required, for whatever when it's required. If I do that, then I have every right to chastise you or anybody else for not holding up your end. If I don't do it, I become somewhat of a hypocrite, depending upon the severity of what it is that I didn't do. Often I point to little things as being responsible for a larger breakdown of ethics and morals, and I talk about things like, going through the toll booth without paying the toll, and you guys laugh at me. And I talk about doing 55 instead of 57 or 61, and you guys laugh at me. And I talk about not, stealing stamps from the office, and you guys laugh at me. Yeah, what's this got to do with ethics? What's this got to do with morals, Lassiter? I mean, come on, we're talking about not the stuff that I do, the stuff that the other guys does, rape and showing your tits and stuff like that, Let us suppose, key word here, do not forget that word. Let us suppose that on the night of June whatever, I was indeed seen smoking on the All Children's Hospital telethon. I mean, come on. So what? The world's going to hell in a handbasket, and there's some bozo who has nothing better to do than to run around town spying on me, and then gossiping about it? I mean, what kind of a toad has nothing better to... Get a life, would you? Join an afternoon bowling league, do something. Suppose it was true. For God's sakes, people, I'm a human being. So maybe I gave in to one overwhelming temptation. I mean, do you really think that a man's life should be judged on one cigarette? But even so, what does somebody falling off the wagon have to do with gun control? I mean, what does a guy having a cigarette at a telethon have to do with gun control? Hey, I tell you, a lot of people quit smoking, started smoking again. We got to get guns to protect ourselves from these people. Does that make sense? Suppose it was true. Suppose I'm a man who is so incredibly shy as to be almost a recluse. And suppose a very dear, sweet man, guy who works at this radio station, Teddy Webb. Suppose he came to me and said, Bob, will you do this telethon? And you didn't want to do it. But you can't turn down your friend. Besides, it's a good cause. But by the night of the telethon, you're a nervous wreck. You're sweating like a pig. You're afraid. So you take a few hits off of a cigarette. Maybe a few hits off of another cigarette. To help you get through the night. Or suppose the whole damn thing simply isn't true. Maybe the charge was leveled in good faith, but was simply a case of mistaken identity. Or maybe it was just a vicious attack on the part of somebody who, is a member of that 80s crowd. Hey, the crowd that doesn't seem much to care for anybody else but their own. And suppose it was just an attack made for the fun of it. Suppose it was an allegation made just to get even because you beat up on somebody's buddy. Suppose. So what do I do? Do I get involved in a pissing contest with a caller? I mean, he's already admitted that he is absolutely without any personal knowledge in this. Now, most of you guys will probably believe me. I've been very honest with you in the past. For the most part. Even if it did take a while for me to come clean sometimes, I've been honest with you. But what do I do if some bozo completely anonymous calls up on the show, says to the producer, I want to talk about gun control. Gets on the air and says, I'm the one who saw you and told the caller. And I'll swear to it on a stack of Bibles. Well, first of all, who the hell's going to make him do it? Who the hell's going to make him swear on a stack of Bibles? We don't even know who the hell he is, and he's gone. No one knows for sure whether it's just another nut out to get Lassiter or whether, there's really something to this. Maybe Lassiter's been lying through his teeth. Suppose somebody different the next day calls up to testify to the fact that, yes, indeed, Lassiter was sucking a butt at the telephone, and I saw him, too. And I'll swear on a stack of Bibles. And meanwhile, there sits Dr. Sobel. Damn good man. It's a damn good program. And he's suffering real damage because some big shot lawyer, or some guy thinks he's a big shot lawyer who doesn't apparently have anything better to do than listen to a lot of talk radio, wanted to use the skills that were taught to him so that he could seek justice in the world to defame, destroy, if he possibly can, and certainly damage not only some guy named Lassiter, the magnificent Lassiter at that, thank you, but some poor innocent slob named Sobel.
Want to look sharp for the office job interview?
I'm taking this thing very, very seriously. Extremely seriously, and for a good reason, because it's important to me. The older I get, the more important it is that I do the right thing. I always preach it. So I try to practice it, and hey, it's not easy. It's not always possible. It's not even always practical to do the right thing, and I'm very well aware of that. From personal experience, I'm very well aware of it. I drive at 55 miles an hour. I already told you that. And I stop and I pay my tolls. I told you that. I give all that I have every day at work, even on the days when it's absolute crap, man. It's all I got. I put my own stamps on my personal letters mailed from the office. That's easy stuff. I do some of the stuff that's a little bit harder. I try to apologize whenever I'm wrong, even when I don't have to do so. I push most things to the limit, but I don't cross over into illegal or unethical territory knowingly, anyway. I mean, frankly, I'm just one hell of a guy. Of course, I do have somewhat of a checkered past. I did a lot of things as a kid that were wild and crazy. I took drugs, and I told the selective service system to shove it, and I did some things that could have landed me in jail. Most of the guys have. That doesn't make it any better or any worse. It's just a fact of life most of us have. As an adult, there were things that happened that I wished did not happen. It can be argued that I brought them on myself, the divorce, the personal bankruptcy, the other crises. I've had a number of business dealings that were anything but shining examples of ethical behavior. But I'm getting older now. It's a hell of a lot easier to see how such seemingly minor, seemingly isolated practices really do contribute to an overall disregard for so-called ethics, for so-called morals. Along with patience, you're introduced to a touch of wisdom as the years go by. just a touch. Both are terribly, terribly desirable items, and unfortunately the price one must pay is called your youth. When you're young, there are so many things that can come between you and what are best only described as ethics. You know, there's the opposite sex, there's getting an education, there's getting a good job, having a career, even a lawyer. And then you come to midlife and there's family and business responsibilities, and they can come between you and ethics. I mean, what the hell? I can tell the truth and send my family down the tubes, or I can tell a little lie here and keep beans in the pot. So those kinds of decisions. Come on, man. I can tell her that I love her and, get my rocks off tonight and worry about it in the morning, or... Those kinds of decisions. Though I haven't reached it yet, I kind of suspect there are things in later life, too, that can come between you and ethics. But sometimes you reach a point in your life where your credibility, your reputation, mean more to you than a buck or a game or anything else. Sometimes. Sometimes the accusation that someone said they saw you smoking a cigarette becomes a very important issue. Something as silly as that. I mean, so what? Who cares what some bozo says? It's silly, but it's not. There are people who believe in me. There are others who would love to see me fail and fall. And then there's still that nice guy named Bob Sobel who's been dragged into this for no reason under the sun. Does it matter to you if I smoked a cigarette? Or a dozen? Or a dozen packs? Does that change any of my political stands? Does it rip at the fabric of the logic that I've used in discussing so many different issues with you guys? Of course not. And now most of you have heard the circumstances surrounding the allegation and can judge for yourself as to its accuracy or the credibility of the accuser. A man who I tell you categorically does not know me, has nothing to back up this crap about contriving my shows, has never seen a ratings book that would indicate that I'm going to the toilet because no such report exists. And I can tell you categorically that this man has no knowledge of my having fallen off the wagon insofar as smoking is concerned. He knows that each and every one of these things that I just said are true. Do you? Was there some strange language that I used there? Oh, well. He also has to live with his conscience concerning the scurrilous attacks on my family, on my most personal life. Again, none of which he has any knowledge of. But like I said, I haven't come to this point to question his ethics, but my own. Push it in, then pull my support hose right over it. Eucalyptumin's warmth seems to penetrate down deep to ease the pain. Chiropractors and therapists are equally positive about eucalyptumin. Over 1,000 of them purchased eucalyptumin for their own private practice. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back from eucalyptumin. Now at the pharmacy counter at all Eckerd drugstores. Ask the Eckerd pharmacist for 100% all natural eucalyptumin.
Do you know where the real excitement in Tampa is?
But there are a significant number of people in this audience who aren't quite convinced of it. So I'll say the obvious. I am a human being. And I am a human being with all the frailties and shortcomings that go along with being a member of the species. I also have a few that are not all that common. I have a vicious temper. Oh, unbelievably explosive. Fortunately, it goes away almost as fast as it comes on. I am somewhat eccentric, and I'm looking forward to becoming even more eccentric as the years go by. And I have a very long memory. And attached to that memory is one of my shortcomings and frailties. I like to get even. I'll tell you something. I alluded to it yesterday, but I didn't really go into any great details. But I'll tell you something, because this is the way I think. And it's not right. I know that, but it's the way I think. 6 months ago, I did my Christmas show. I do it because people asked me to do it. First year, I did it because I had to. I had to put those things together for myself. It's a rough Christmas. Whew, bad one. And towards the end of the monologue, I talk about a Christmas 4 or 5 years ago now, when I first came to this town, when I knew no one, had no money, was living in a one-room apartment. And at the last minute, I pulled myself out of it because there's a silly little tradition every Christmas Eve in my family. We had potato salad and Polish ham. And so I ran out of the store, and I bought some potato salad and Polish ham, and everything was cool. And I made it through that Christmas. And I tell that story because there are a lot of people who go through rough Christmases. And there are a lot of people that have silly little traditions that they've kind of forgotten that they could pull back out. Well, there was this kid working on the weekends who now has a full-time gig here who sat there and ridiculed that story. Hey, he's messing with my mother's potato salad. I get mad about that kind of stuff. What am I going to do? Walk up to him and say, hey, kid, you're messing with my mom's potato salad. No, I sit back and I wait. And I collect. And then one day you go a little bit too far. And you allow me to come in and just kick you in the nuts. Got kicked in the nuts from Mom's potato salad, Lionel. It's a shortcoming I have. I also have an addictive personality. I overeat. I love food. I eat to celebrate. I eat to mourn. I eat to pass the time. I eat to reward myself. I eat to punish myself. I overeat. It's a real sign of weakness. It's a sign of character. It's a sign of personality. It's a sign of an addiction. And for 30 years in my life, I smoked on the average 2 to 3 packages a day of cigarettes, sometimes as much as 5. Whoa. That's an addiction. And I drink more than I think I should, because I'm terrified of becoming an alcoholic. So, if I have 1 drink a day, that's more than I think I should. But I mean, my God, I'm not all that bad. I'm very proud, damn it, that 7 months ago, I put down those god-awful cigarettes and walked away from them with no regrets. I'm very proud that a number of times in my life I've lost considerable amounts of weight, even though I put it back on. At least it showed that, there was some hope there. And I'm very proud that I'm not an alcoholic. It's probably because I worry about it so damn much. And I'm very proud that I don't take any drugs anymore. And I'm very proud that I don't, cheat on my taxes and I pay my bills. And I seem to have a very good second marriage. And I'm very proud of all of those things. They're not great accomplishments. Frankly, it's what you're supposed to do in life. And maybe you're even supposed to do it a little bit better than I do. But nonetheless, I'm reasonably proud. I think I have cause to be reasonably proud. So I just don't understand when somebody comes down the street who can't deal with what I thought were legitimate questions about him and his generation. A callousness that prevails not just amongst a handful of people, but amongst a very large group of people, of which he is part of a crowd. We call it a generation. And take shots at me and some guy in Clearwater that runs a stop smoking clinic that he's never met, and just tells lie after lie after lie, and then when he's finished with the lies, he starts passing along gossip about which he has no knowledge whatsoever, and then after he's through with that, launches into some kind of a vicious, bizarre attack. Well, you don't have any kids. You don't have any roots. What in the hell has that got to do with anything? Well, it's got a lot to do with things. Not quite through yet. Need about another 5, 10, 15 minutes to finish the story. Don't go far. Welcome back here, Fun Seekers. 11 minutes after the hour, 4 o'clock. Wednesday, June the 14th, Flag Day, 1989. But we're not talking about flags per se. Well, maybe red flags. I don't know. We'll find out in a second. Let's get down to the key issue here. Because I very carefully, for the last hour, while talking about this, used very specific language. And I would imagine at some point, if I did my job, at some point during the last hour, I convinced you, yes, he broke down and smoked. And then at some point during the last hour, if I did my job, I brought you right back to the other side and said, no, he didn't. And then at some point during the last hour, if I did my job, you're sitting there saying, I don't know. You see, we're talking about ethics here. We're not really talking about Lassiter smoking. Come on. And we're talking about how we weave things and make them swing back and forth, suit whatever purpose we want them to suit. Did he smoke or did he not smoke? Hey, come on. 7 months ago, I put down those god-awful cigarettes and I walked away with no regrets. Cravings? Yeah. Every day. Every day, I think. Maybe one or two or three that I didn't have a craving. But I beat them. I weathered one personal crisis after another. And I'm very proud to tell you that not once during those personal crises did I pick up a cigarette. Not once. This shift is driving me crazy. But it didn't drive me to smoke, and I'm very proud of that. Not once. There are callers that drive me insane, but they didn't get me. There are young up-and-coming kids napping at my heels, so they tell me, but they didn't get me. There was no day-to-day bull that got me, nor any cumulative effect of all of these things that got me. I guarantee you that. None of it tempted me to smoke so much as one cigarette. And I swear to you that's the truth. It was a 30-year addiction that got me. It got me for a few days at the end of last month and at the beginning of this. I mean, hey, so what? It's none of your damn business. Well, you people don't own me. Who the hell do you think you are? Nor do I owe you anything. Nothing. By the way, no time since I fell off the wagon, and I am back on it too, by the way, have I said anything to imply that I have been smoke-free since day one. I didn't lie to you. I used words, just like I just did, just like some other people did yesterday. I mean, come on, but what's the big deal here? The world's going to hell in a handbasket, and you people are going to jump on me for smoking a cigarette? You have no right to jump on me. I'm a human being. I'm entitled to be frail. I'm entitled to slip and fall from time to time, and I didn't do any harm to anyone but myself. And it was damned little, too, thank you. But I'm very ashamed of myself. I'm very disappointed that I slipped. Isn't that enough for you? What do you want, blood? I'm addicted to cigarettes. Do you have any idea how good that first cigarette tasted? Oh, my God. Even the second and the third one and the fourth and the fifth were pretty damn good, but by the next day, the taste buds were already gone. The cough was back. And so it didn't last very long. Do you know how quickly I was hooked again? Do you have any idea? Probably after the first puff. Because it was so good. Oh, my God, it was good. I'm addicted to them. So what? What skin is it off of your nose? It's skin off of my nose, huh? Right? I mean, for God's sake, this has nothing whatsoever to do with what goes on the show. It's totally irrelevant, but it does have a lot to do with it, and it's not irrelevant. It's such a small thing, but it's not a small thing. I mean, I could have stopped this monologue a few minutes ago. And having put a very good spin on the whole damn thing, like I said, a lot of you would have believed me. A lot of you would have said, I don't know, geez, what's he talking about? I'm not going to go into the phones. Leaving most of you convinced that I had been the victim of a callous caller with an axe to grind. Well, the truth of the matter is, I was the victim of a callous caller with an axe to grind. But he didn't know it. He didn't know that he was right. He had no way of knowing he was right. And it would be wrong for me to lie to you about it. It would be easy, but very, very wrong. Yep, Lassiter copped a few butts, has a very considerable amount of egg on his face, and he feels like an absolute, complete, total jerk. If that makes you happy. Feels like a total jerk if it doesn't make you happy, by the way. Should point out, by the way, that I have discussed it with Dr. Sobel. Damn decent man with a damn good program. He understands. It's normal. Happens to a very large percentage of people. It's also normal to get back on the wagon again and to continue right on. It happens. It's no big deal. I thought very seriously about telling you about it, but I said, well, if I tell these people that I broke down and had some cigarettes, several packages of cigarettes, and say, but yesterday I quit again. So what? There's got to be a considerable amount of time between when I fell off the wagon and got back on, and I tell you about it. I mean, I had been off cigarettes 5, 6, 7 weeks before I started doing the spots for Dr. Sobel. And so I figured it only reasonable to fall off and get back on and have quite a number of weeks. And 7 months is a long time. I'm damn proud of that. I have every reason to be proud of it. And I am. I'm also very disappointed with myself for playing the lawyer game yesterday. You see, I knew that the good old Oski could not prove his allegations. I was very well aware of that, so I defied him to do so. And yes, that was twisting and manipulating words in order to put the best possible light on myself, to discredit him without any real regard as to whether or not we were dealing with the truth. Truth wasn't very important to either of us. So I went home last night, and I was mad as hell at myself. I was mad as hell for getting caught. I was mad as hell for being so stupid as to pick up a cigarette again. And I sat there and I said, I've got 4 choices. I can ignore it, I can lie about it, I can put the spin on it, or I can come clean. And coming clean, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry to tell you, was not my first choice. It's embarrassing. It's very embarrassing. You see, it could cost me money. But it would also cost me my self-respect, and it gets a hell of a lot more important to me the older I get. Self-respect. And so I decided I'd come in here and I'd tell you about it today. You know it. The smoking really isn't the big thing. At least insofar as you guys are concerned, but lying about it is. And I'm not going to lie about it. How can I ask you to believe me if I lie about something that's so small, so insignificant as smoking? Wow, give me a break. 20 minutes after the hour, 4 o'clock. Well. Speaking of smoking, Friday's coming up soon. Hey, Foxfetcher?
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Gary. What's the matter?
Nothing, Bob. I'm just, I was ill yesterday, and I'm just kind of recovering now. So
You certainly don't have mononucleosis, huh? For sure.
No, but the rash won't clear up. Yes, Bob.
There was quite a bit of question about some paraphernalia found on the plane, but perhaps we'll cover that at a later traffic report. Gary McHenry with an air... Maybe if I came clean, it would... But then I had no choice. I had to come clean. I'm not sure you see what ethics are all about. In a perfect world, they should prevent us from ever doing anything wrong. Perhaps in the real world, the best we can hope for is to have them keep people from straying too far off the path. So dear Oski, on the surface, it would certainly appear that you have won. You have drawn blood from the mighty Lassiter. Not too many people do that, Oski. It is perhaps your greatest accomplishment at this point in your life, and quite possibly it'll be the greatest accomplishment that you ever pull off in life. Of course, it still leaves the rest of us wondering just why you got bored when mere civilians without the benefit of a law degree that presumably ensures wisdom and superiority, dare to talk about things that concern us, and hopefully one day you will honor us with an answer to that, Oski, and perhaps you will also tell us if you went home last night and agonized over whether to come clean with the audience concerning things that you said that you knew were not true. Or things that were just plain vicious, like, referring to my family and that kind of stuff. I wonder if you went home and agonized about that last night, Oski. I suspect that you didn't because, you see, that's the kind of stuff I was really talking about. Perhaps someday you would come before this microphone and explain to us your views on ethics and examine your own conscience for just how well you meet the test of ethical standards. Not my standards, Oski. Not the community standards, your own. We might find it very interesting to find out exactly what your ethical standards are. I certainly don't have any great problem in coming in here and telling you about mine. They're not the best, Oski. They fall short in many, 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 many areas. And I sat down, Oski, and I graded myself. My grade, Oski, on my ethical standards, it's quite simple. Unsatisfactory, but improving. It's all I can ask for, Oski, hey. 7 months, Oski, that's incredible. And Dr. Sobel is indeed the one who did help me and got me back on the wagon, too. Dr. Sobel, by the way, is still my client. I'm still as confident in him as I have ever been. I'm still as confident in his program as I have ever been. In fact, more so than ever. You see, Oski, I remember quitting once before on my own for quite a number of months and then falling off the wagon, which is very common, Oski, by the way. It's very, very common indeed. And I didn't get back on the wagon. So you see, it's one of the things it's an ongoing struggle when you have an addiction. God, I wish I was as perfect as you are, man. I mean, perhaps you would favor me and put some notes together for me and send them to me so how I might achieve the perfection that you have achieved in life, and how I, too, might someday become so grand, so great, so wise, powerful, and knowledgeable as to call somebody up and viciously attack his family. And viciously sit there and spread lies, knowing that those lies are what they are, lies. And then drag a third party into it as well, in an attempt to damage him, too. Maybe someday, Oski, you'll favor us that way, huh? Let me give you guys the telephone numbers. The number's 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 990-WFLA, and the other place, which is otherwise known as Pinellas County, although I really do wish you people would start referring to it as the other place, 461-9352, 461-WFLA. There is, of course, the practical joke line, which is 1-223-9797, 1-223-9797. It's a Tampa line. So if you're in Tampa, you have to dial the 1, and if you're outside of Tampa, you have to dial the 1. It's going to cost you an arm and a leg. I don't know why they call it the practical joke. Well, they don't. I do. They call it the long-distance line. 990-9352. In the WFLA news booth, none other than the second most respected newsman, Don Richards. Don.
Hello, Bob.
Hi.
Listen, Bob, the hat's off to you for the smoking issue because I guess the important thing to it is you're back on the wagon.
Well, obviously, yeah.
And when it comes to this Lapidus, does that sound right, Bob?
Well, I don't know how he pronounces his name. It's my understanding it's not really his name.
Well, I think it's Lapidus. But, if I were you, Bob, when you're on the top, it's like the sports, the NFL or baseball. When you're on the top, somebody's always trying to knock you off, and I know you know that. But I think that's why this Lapidus and these guys that call in that morning show, are just trying to...
To tell you the truth, I wouldn't have the vaguest idea why he did it. The only thing that really matters to me is how I responded to it, and the only thing that really matters to me is how I conduct myself. Other people can conduct themselves any way they so desire. They're the ones that have to look in the mirror every morning.
Well, it is, Bob. And I tell you, you've had us glued to the radio, and nobody moves, and I can't even get dinner cooked here, but I appreciate it. You're a good man.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Bob.
Take care. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, which won't do you any good. The line is in the other place. 461-9352, 461-WFLA. Hi, Tampa. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Bob, I hope you just give me a couple seconds here because I have a lot of things. You struck home. You struck home to my heart because I have a lot of things in common with you, and just let me go over them. I think to start off, the special word you use is conscience. And I've always tried to treat people like I would like to be treated, which doesn't always work because it always seems like you end up getting advantage of, taking of. And, Bob, I was disabled. I've been paying 24 hours a day. And I was on a lot of heavy-duty prescription painkillers and muscle relaxants. And finally, when I got off of them, I know what you're going through because I had to go and look in the mirror and go to my friends who have been friends for 20 years. And in your case, I can understand where your audience. And you go to those people and you admit, yeah, I screwed up. I was a butthole. It's the hardest thing in the world to turn around and say, listen, yeah, I made a mistake. And I don't think you have any reason to feel ashamed because of what happened yesterday. On the fact, I, too, have a temper.
No. What happened yesterday is not what I'm ashamed about. What I'm ashamed about is that I gave in.
Exactly. That's what I was going to tell you. I fell into a trap similar to what you're speaking of. Somebody got the best of my goat. They knew a point that they could bring up to bring up my emotions and temper. And 5 minutes later, I was kicking myself in the butt over it. And I think FLA they should be upset as far as it maligned the endorsements. It started out one of the best endorsements and commercials I've ever heard. The only ones I've ever even paid attention to. I'm one of these guys that'll flick the TV set as soon as the commercial comes on. But I've always felt, from Uncle Dickie, Al, Ted, yourself, and even Lionel, I always felt a conviction in their endorsements that they were believable, that these people had gone out and checked out the people who they were sponsoring. And I'm not naive enough not to realize that there's money involved. That's what makes the world go round. But it just it upset me so much that, okay, so you go to Calb's Cove and maybe there's something you might try that you haven't tried before and you don't like. Does that necessarily mean that, you're going to Calb's Cove is no longer up to
you see, what poor old Oscar has ended up doing is he has given me the opportunity to talk about an entirely different approach, about an entirely different aspect of getting off those miserable cigarettes. Mr. Oscar has done me a great service, and I intend to take every opportunity.
Well, let me just say this one thing. I felt honored of speaking to you on the past occasions, and at this point of the time, I've never really had any inclinations to want to meet you, but I'd love to, right now, I'd like just to go to shake your hand and say, I know what you've gone through. I know how you feel because there's many times I've been in pain. And in fact, in the point of case, I have fallen off the wagon. I've went out and spent $80 just knowing it'll give me maybe 2 or 3 hours out of pain. And then next day I realized, what did I really accomplish by it? And look, just to get on a little bit of lighter side, I heard a rumor going around that Gary McHenry was actually the inspiration for the Stone song, Can't Get No Satisfaction. And I was wondering maybe next time you speak to him, if there was any truth to that, he might be getting royalties from it.
Well, no. As a matter of fact, it's a rather obscure side B of a Sam the Sham record that Gary is the inspiration for, and it is simply I Can Get No. 4:49 1/2 the time. Standing by at the WFLA news desk, our very own second most respected news. We're just tuning in. Know that Lassiter, the mighty Lassiter, fell off the wagon a couple of weeks ago with the cigarettes, and there are an awful lot of people that would like to say, well, yeah, there's the proof that the Lassiter doesn't know what he's talking about, and this guy runs that place up there. His program isn't good, and nothing could be further from the truth. It's quite the opposite way around. It's all the more proof that it does work. What I'm talking about is the Stop Smoking Center, the program called Quit for Life. You see, when I started to pick up a cigarette again, I didn't think it was because there was a crisis going on in my life, although there always are. See, that's the problem. If you think that you're smoking because there's a crisis, then there will always be a crisis, meaning you won't have the strength to stop. Or if you think that you're smoking because there's this going on, or there's that going on, or there's this situation, or there's that situation, then there will always be a situation. That's one of the things that Dr. Robert Sobel helped me to identify 7 months ago, that I smoked for one reason and one reason alone, not because I had a lot of problems in my life. I smoked because I was addicted to the damn things. And so I didn't have to wait for the problems to be over. All I had to do was sit up and say, wait a second. It's just a simple addiction, and I can beat it. That's why it works. That's why it worked for me. It's why it will work for you. 787-5530. 787-5530. Most people will pick up a cigarette again sometime during the first year. 787-5530. 2 one-hour sessions, 1 week apart. Total cost $39.50. Dr. Robert Sobel. It works. Every time. Tampa, you're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Yes, I wanted to comment on ethics. It seems that we're in a society now where all relationships, business and human, are judged by whether they're lawful. That is, if it's not against the law, it must be okay. And we've lost sight of the intent of those laws. And I think a particular profession that deals in the law every day is very susceptible to that weakness, in that they even have to have a special agency or a bureau or a bar that tells them the difference between right and wrong, obviously because they're confused about it practicing law every day. No one's got a bigger erection for lawyers than I do, but because I have found them to be probably the less scrupulous segment of our business community on more than one occasion. So I agree with you. Now, in your little debate...
1 second, if I might break in here. I'm not so sure that it's lawyers that we're talking about. I'm afraid that we've made a big mistake. I think we're talking about a generation here, some of whom happen to be lawyers.
I would have to agree with you, because I have a lot of contact with people from a certain school of thought, and they obviously, if it's for me, self-interest is the primary motivator, and any time you want to predict their behavior, which will benefit them the most, you can usually bet that's going to be the behavior. In your little debate, I thought the call brought out a profile of humanity. That is, both people engaged in a kind of a junior high school schoolyard fisticuffs, which was mostly all verbal, and particularly the caller that made the call to you. He has an image, and he's known to your callers, and I think he was probably using that as his ammunition to give him credibility, but he really lost it. And it was totally uncalled for to bring up the irrelevant personal issues. I personally don't care if you smoke or don't smoke, or whether you weigh this or weigh that, or where you have lunch. It had nothing to do with the issue, and I thought it was disgusting.
Well, it might have something to do, I don't know, I think you might be legitimately able to use personal characteristics to make some decisions, but a personal characteristic has nothing whatsoever to do with a personal opinion. And that's all we were ever talking about.
The wrong here is that an individual was trying to hurt an individual personally. They were not trying to rectify a wrong or adjust a grievance or reach a resolution. This was a simple finger in the eye or any other part of the anatomy that might be vulnerable. And unfortunately, all of us, when we get engaged in these little emotional battles, whether it be in the court, if it's a courtroom or a business boardroom or management labor, we have a tendency to pull out all the ammunition because we're emotionally fighting for what we want to happen. And maybe that's some of the wrong, too. Again, it's our goal.
12 minutes after the hour of 5 o'clock. Welcome back. It's Wednesday, the 14th day in the month of June, 1989. Utterly no going back and recapping this one. I mean, you'll just have to fend for yourself if you weren't around earlier. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, the only line available. Again, to the phones we go. Hi, Tampa, you're on the air.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
You shouldn't be too embarrassed, because Cleveland Wheeler's got to be more embarrassed than you.
Oh, how's that?
You didn't hear reading the paper Sunday about what happened to him?
No.
Well,
I didn't see the paper Sunday, actually.
Well, Donny Osmond just put out a new rock and roll album.
Uh-huh.
And Q105 refused to play it.
Uh-huh.
So Donny Osmond called up Cleveland Wheeler and asked him why they wouldn't play his new album. Cleveland said, quote, unquote, because you're a wimp.
Yeah.
So Donny Osmond challenged him to an arm wrestling match.
Yeah.
And
that was just in the paper?
It was in the paper Sunday.
Because that happened a long time ago.
Oh, did it?
Oh, several weeks ago, yeah.
Well, Cleveland lost it, so, he's got to be pretty embarrassed.
Well, I would think so. Actually, if I was him, I'd leave the market.
I mean, I'd be more embarrassed about losing an arm wrestling match to Donny Osmond than getting caught smoking
First of all, he made that tragic mistake of taking off the beard. Whoa. Well, I'd have started the next day to grow that one back. I mean, he looked pretty damn good with a beard. And then losing to Donny Osmond. I mean, come on. What is left in life? Just nothing left.
All right, Bob. Well, I just want to let you know you shouldn't be so embarrassed.
Thank you very much.
See ya.
990-9352 in Hillsborough. Hi, Cleveland. 461-9352 in Pinellas. Madeira Beach. Hi, Madeira. You're on the air.
Hello, Bob. How you doing?
Fine.
Well, good. Listen, I wanted to call you because I've been listening to you now since you were on PLP, and I've called you a couple of times, and we've had some good conversations, and we've had some bad conversations. You called me a punk one time, even though I'm about your age, and hung up on me. And
you should be flattered.
That's here nor there. But the reason that I'm calling is that I feel that sometimes I can't make up my mind whether you are a damn good actor or if you are really on the level. And if you are really on the level, I mean, if your sensitivities are such that you come on this program and let yourself be cut open and have people throw knives at you, because I've heard some people call and say some really nasty things to you, and I don't think any human being deserves to have some of the things said to them that you have had said to you from anybody, regardless of whether they're in broadcasting or whatever. And I just have to ask you, is the stress and the feeling that when you go home at night, is it all worth it? I mean, really, because sometimes...
Most of the nights there aren't any stress. Let me address the first thing, though, that you said, and then I'll come back to follow up on your latest point. You ask if I'm sincere or a damn good actor, and the answer is yes. I happen to have above-average communicative skills. I also happen to have a flair for drama, if you will. But I'm a very lucky man. I don't go through most of the things that the average guy goes through, so I have the time, or the luxury, if you will, to sit around and think about this kind of crap. And sometimes it drives me insane. Okay, about taking it home with me. Most nights I don't take it home with me. I love my work. Do I sometimes feel maligned, and do I sometimes feel unloved and unwanted and unappreciated? You better believe it. But then I try to straighten myself out and say, hey, come on. You got it made in the shade, man.
Does this affect your health at all? I mean, do you...
A couple of weeks ago it did. I started to change my ways immediately. When I started to feel the throbbing in the left arm, and yeah, sometimes.
So I'm really asking this seriously. I'm not trying to be funny or such, but because you are a type A personality and you feel so deeply about this, and people do tend to get on you when you really feel something, when you really have an issue, and people do tend to get on you, would it be better for you as a person to be in, say, a production end of of radio rather than being on the front line like this? Because I'm basically, to tell you the truth, I've never met you. I really feel that as one human being to another, I really feel that I really should have the duty to tell you that sometimes it sounds to me like you're going right off the wall, And
well, then I've sucked you in. That's the acting.
Well, that's the acting, but if
I believe what I'm saying, but sometimes one does tend to deliver one's material for the greatest impact. No, you've never heard me really lose it on the air. I don't believe in the last 2 years.
Well, I don't know. I would say that you've come awful close to losing it on the air, but if you are that involved in it and people get to you.
If I may say one thing, if you had ever seen me lose it off the air, then you would not for a second suspect that you had ever seen me lose it on.
Well, wasn't the situation there at at that festival where you went to and that little altercation occurred?
There was no little altercation, sir.
Well,
somebody came up and screamed in my ear, and sir, if you're going to bring it up, you're going to listen to the story.
Oh yeah, I know. I read it.
No, you didn't read it, sir.
Okay.
You read one person's account of it.
Okay.
Which was dropped. Somebody came up and screamed in my ear, and I flicked back my hand as you would if a bumblebee came up and buzzed in your ear, and the poor soul's mouth just still happened to be there screaming. So don't suggest, sir, in any shape, manner, or form that I go around feeding up people.
Yeah, I'm not trying to suggest anything. I'm calling to be, I'm really calling to be a friend, okay? And I'm just kind of concerned about you. Would something maybe in the background be better suited for you than being out in the front line, or no?
Sir, I got suckered once yesterday. I ain't going to get suckered twice. Brandon, you're on there at 970 WFLA.
Good afternoon, Bob.
Hi.
How are you? I know that
you're thank you.
Very emotional today. The bottom line, from what I've heard, the recording that you played, is that this guy called you for about 10 times and he said, you're jealous, you're jealous, you're jealous. I couldn't understand who is he say that you're jealous of?
Lionel.
I
would assume, since he's Lionel's good buddy, and said he's just gotten off the phone with Lionel.
Do you feel intimidated by Lionel?
Sir, do I sound like a man who's intimidated?
Well, why is it that you're trying to attack him so much, and in a way you let the audience feel that you are being intimidated by him?
Sir, just one simple phrase. One simple phrase will explain it all. You know, back in the 1960s and early 70s, there was one word that explained it all. The word was plastics. Potato salad. Well. Speaking of somebody who's been sliced up and in the mayonnaise a lot, our very with carrots and eggs and all that kind of stuff. Our very own airborne traffic reporter. Wait a second, Collins isn't in today. Who's on today? McHenry?
McHenry.
Okay.
The big star.
Gary McHenry is sitting in for Ray Collins.
The real bronzodonist.
That Collins, he is a pro. Can and your vegetables out of one, too? Then please do not go to Calb's Cove. You will be bitterly disappointed. It's just not what's going on at Calb's Cove. But if you're into things like stuffed artichokes and oysters in the rough and Caesar salad and French onion soup, and if you're also into things like chicken supreme, which is boneless breast of chicken sauteed and crab meat and topped with mushrooms and or maybe the Captain Harry fresh grouper shrimp and scallop salt sauteed in garlic with lots and lots and lots of fresh mushrooms. And if you're into flambe desserts like cherries jubilee and bananas Foster, and if you're into things like veal piccata, then you should be into Calb's Cove. What a place. An incredible menu, incredible people, an incredible location, professional, personalized service, and yet it's somehow never, ever, ever stuffy. Calb's Cove. Their phone number is 393-3448. Or you can find them at 13155 Gulf Boulevard in Madeira Beach. Temple Terrace. Hi, Temple. You're on the air at 970 WFLA.
Hey, Bud.
Hi.
Just called. Second time I called. Last time, the man who answered the phone thought I was some nut from Zephyr Hills and thought I'd just moved. But same time I called today, the situation there and the ethics and whatnot, I've got to say that, I've listened to you for quite some time, and I definitely don't always agree with you. But at the same time, I do have a respect for you as far as your ethics are concerned. With the situation the way it is.
Well, mine, like everybody else, is starting to need improvement, but at least I'm trying to work on them.
Right. Well, that's the best we can do. It's a daily thing. Each day we get up, it's the same thing all over again. We have to make those decisions for that day. And, I just say that I do have a lot of respect for that. And, if you had to use me for a witness for the lawsuit, I'm afraid you would lose because it hasn't hurt my image of you. by far, and as far as whether you smoke or not, it's something that again is an ongoing thing. Or how much you weigh, as some of them allude to and whatnot. So I think you're still in good shape, Bob. You do make me think. Sometimes vehemently disagree with you, but I don't have access to the phone, so I don't always get the call. But at the same time, I think you got a good show. And, of course, as you say, your ratings prove that already, so you didn't really need my opinion on that. But
I appreciate it.
I would call and let you know you still got listeners out there for sure. And, the thing with the ethics, I think it's always a thing of when something comes up like that, we, have to stop and look at it and, of course, get past our emotions to begin with, where we do get carried away a little bit sometimes, but stop and think about it. And you come through again, basically coming back and saying, this is what the facts are, and this is where I'm at, and I think that's what most of your listeners really expect from you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Take care. Off it is to Holiday. Hi, Holiday. You're on the air at 970 WFLA. No, you're not. That's the wrong one. Let's do that. Now you're on the air, Holiday.
Yes, hello, Robert.
Hi.
Robert, I've listened to you for a long time. I've been to your show. I met you at the airport. I've shaken your hands. My family has. And there are people that hang on every word you say. I believe you're a very unusual man, a very smart man. I hope you're not a phony. I don't think you are. But I've got some things to say, and you may not like them. You may like them. I don't think you will. I quit listening to you when you didn't show up for a Friday show, and you went to New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
I thought what you did to those people was horrible, because there's people that believe in you very, very, very much.
I'll tell you what.
And
let me break in here.
Yes, sir.
Since you've got some complaints, I want you to have a chance to air them, but I'm coming up on my 5:30 break. Can I put you on hold?
I understand.
Okay, on hold. That's line 7. I should write it down again. If I don't, I will surely forget it. I always do. Probably want to go back to him. I'll forget what he's talking about. So long. Anyway, off it is now to Don Richards at the WFLA News Desk. Donald. I knew I'd almost forget you. That's what happens with these breaks. They're incredibly long.
Oh, great. Glad you didn't forget me, Robert.
No, I didn't.
All right. My beef was when you left the audience hanging and you went to New Orleans and you left Saving Sam there.
No, I didn't.
You didn't leave Saving Sam?
No, I didn't. I'll be very honest with you. I like Sam very, very much. But
he's a nice guy.
He really is a very nice guy. But what I had requested to be done, when the station asked me if I wanted to go to New Orleans, I said, well, hey, great,
I don't blame
that's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But I specifically asked that Ted Webb sit in that afternoon, simply because I thought that Ted would do a better shot with that particular type of audience.
But, Robert...
And they said yes, and then they changed their minds.
But,
and
Robert,
I didn't know it.
I think, and I speak just as one of your listeners, and my family also, if I'd have had to take off from work, which I wanted to do, and come over there, I'd have been quite upset. In other words, I didn't want to come to see WFLA Radio. It's a nice old station. I've seen it for years. I personally wanted to see you. People do hang on your words. That's what that character said yesterday. And you know what you said in your monologue beginning? Oh, yeah, he was sharp. He was a typical lawyer. He went right after your jugular vein, and you exposed it, and he grabbed it.
Yeah, no two ways about it.
He handed it to you in your hand.
Yeah, I know.
But I haven't listened to you since then. My family has. The other thing, one day, it was right after that. I've got to say this along there. You said no new callers. You got upset with all the old callers. You said, I don't want any new callers. I don't want any old callers. I want all new callers. If you ever call again, I don't want to talk to you.
No, that's not what I said at all. I said for the remainder of the week, we will have nothing but new callers on.
Oh, well, all right. It could have been.
That's exactly what it was.
It could have been.
I mean, we were getting down to a point where we were dealing with I believe I used to refer to it as the nifty 50. We were dealing primarily with the same 50 people over and over and over and over again.
And
that's no good for the format. It's no good for the station. It's no good for the audience.
That could be, too. I agree with you about your morning host. What you said about him. I personally, as a human being, think both of you need children. I really do. I think you both need children. To raise children, you'd get a new perspective of life. And I can't sit here as a man and explain to you like that. I'm sure a lot of listeners understand what I'm saying.
I'm sure they do.
The other thing I want to say is you don't always have opinions. You gave facts on cost of living back before when Carter, and those aren't opinions; those are facts. You've given facts on Bible quotations, and they're facts. You've given other facts.
When I say I only have opinions, I'm talking about solutions. You know, obviously, to say that the prime rate's 10.25% or whatever the hell it is,
but the real
is a
prime
fact.
rate, but the real prime rate, the way you say, and you're right. Your influence at Eastern, I came out there and brought my family out there. I wanted my 9-year-old son to see what it was about. I'd never done anything like that. It was hard, working all day, listening to you riding around the truck and saying, "Hey, I'm going to come out there and do it." And it's just what you said. You guys need to come out there. So, but there are people that hang on your words. When he said that, he was right. You've got a 9-year-old listener right now that took your picture down in his room. And that's why I basically called. I hadn't listened to you until yesterday. I don't know what it was, and I just turned it on yesterday, probably a half hour before that guy called and began listening to you a little bit. This time slot they've got you in is horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And I feel that it may be paranoia on my part, but I feel you're a cowboy, and they want to pull you in line, and I think this is one way of doing it.
No, the station pulling me in line in this time period? No, that's not.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
No, we're trying. I'll be as blunt as I can be. Under the circumstances, I have gone to the station and I have said, "This is driving me insane. I want no parts of the way this segment is set up." When I agreed to do this, I said I wasn't going to try to get you to change your format. Although the clock was a little bit different than it is now. And, I either want out of it or we're going to have to make other arrangements. And I'm working with the station on it right now, and I would hope that in the next few days there will start to be some vast improvements, because I couldn't agree with you more. The amount of time between 4:30 and 5 and 5:30 and 6 is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
not a talk show. It's not a... I'm sitting here introducing commercials and Gary, and I love Gary, and I love doing the things I do with Gary, and I love commercials, but I'm a talk show host, and that's what I'm going to be.
Yeah. I agree, Bob. Robert, we'll be listening to you again. I have brought you back after that. I enjoyed your talk. I need to talk to my son and let some other callers in here. I've taken enough of your time.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice evening.
Be good. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352. In what is, of course, becoming widely known throughout the entire Bay Area as the other place. If it's not Hillsborough, it must be the other place. Don Richards standing by at the WFLA News booth. Don?
House in Washington today fell 37 votes shy of the two-thirds majority needed to override the...
It was this man, Dr. Sobel, and his program that taught me that I wasn't smoking to calm my nerves. I wasn't smoking to get through a crisis. I wasn't smoking for any other reason than simply because I was addicted to the damn things. And as soon as I caught on to that, and as soon as I caught on to it again the second time and I needed a little bit of reinforcement, then it was easy. It was a piece of cake because I no longer had any excuses to continue smoking.
Well, the only other thing that I'd like to add is, Mr. Big Shot Oscar, if you're listening, I think that you ought to call up, and I think you owe Dr. Sobel an apology.
I think
if you're big enough to do it.
I think he does too, but I'm afraid that he isn't big enough to do it. Because he doesn't give a damn about Dr. Sobel, and he doesn't give a damn about any of the people that Dr. Sobel has helped. He just was trying to protect his buddy.
Well, like I said, I've only had two really best friends in my life, and I'll fight them. I've fought for them, and I, defend them after they were dead. But I never did it through viciously attacking somebody else, and somebody that had no business, being attacked.
Thank you, my friend.
Be good.
You too. We'll do it again tomorrow about 3 o'clock. Behave yourselves, huh?